Hello, ladies and gentlemen, live in YouTube land. How we doing, fellas?
Wonderful.
Yeah, man. Glad to be back.
Man, what a week. It's always fun being back. Kenny's back, so I'm not going to take over full hosting duties tonight. So just to kind of culminate from last week, I'll get us started, and then I'll go ahead and hand it over to Kenny and let you kind of kick us off and tell us how your week's been.
Oh, good. Welcome, boys. Sorry I missed you guys last week. Rough couple weeks at the Swab household, but we're back in action, enjoying life, and excited to talk some baseball tonight. My week was good. I had a wedding last night, so recovering from that today.
Feeling that one.
But excited to be here. How was everyone else's week this past week?
Who got married? Let's give a shout out.
Yeah, we'll give a shout out to Patrick Phillips and Julia Phillips now. That is Marissa's sister. They had a small ceremony last April in Richmond, COVID wedding, and then they had a real big celebration last night, so it was a lot of fun.
Love it.
There we go.
Hey, any excuse to have a party these days is I feel like a welcomed excuse.
That's
the
right.
The videos you sent in the group chat last night were pretty hilarious, and we're looking forward to hopefully doing that together soon, live and in person. So
that's right.
Sweet. Yeah, no, it's been an interesting week of baseball. We've got a lot of fun topics for us to kind of chat about, and I'm excited to hear some thoughts as always.
Someone was a little tipsy.
Yeah,
we had fun.
Maybe just a little in the video. So
we had fun. We had fun.
Oh, too funny.
Good deal.
Oh, too good.
Yeah. Well, Berrick, Robby, how was y'all's week? Good. Can't complain.
You know, hanging in there. So we just kind of another week.
Yeah. No, we hear you on that for sure.
Cool. Well, cool. Let's jump right in. I think obviously one of the big stories for us was welcome back Ronald Acuña.
Yes, sir.
It wasn't the greatest of opening nights for him, but we'll take it for what it's worth. So yeah, I'll open it up to you guys. What are your thoughts on him being back? What are your thoughts on moving forward, the team moving forward, and where do we see kind of the Braves going over the next, call it back half of the first half of the season?
Yeah, I mean, when you add a guy like Ronald Acuña Jr. back into the lineup, he instantly obviously helps the lineup kind of formidably. And we talked about that a little bit last week of just, his presence is just going to shift a lot of guys' mindsets in there. And, I think most of us, figured it was going to be a little bit for him in terms of getting down with the MLB timing and getting that rhythm back. So, I think overall the weekend so far his week, so far was pretty decent. He had some good plate appearances. He went ahead and got that excuse me check swing single out of the way yesterday. So, when that stuff starts falling for you, I think that's always a good sign for some big hacks to come. So, so hopefully again over this next week, he'll keep getting that timing back down, and we'll see that Ronald Acuña Jr. of old coming back. So.
Sure. I totally get it. It's a different ball game. Even if you're taking live ABs off of guys, I mean, take even spring training at bats when you go in there and take, even if it's a live BP off of somebody, even just spring training games, you go to the next level and you get in the season. It's just a different vibe and a different feeling. So, excited for him to get some ABs and get in the groove and propel the Bravos forward for a good second half.
Yeah, for sure. I think what's really needed right now is his defense in the outfield. Our outfield defense right now is not very good. The Rangers today took clear advantage of Ozuna's arm in left field. The third base coach just didn't even hesitate on pretty routine single straight at him, and the throw was not even close and wildly up the line. And so I think adding Acuña in there again is going to help take some pressure off Duvall in center, which I think we chatted about last week as well. I don't know what the answer is for the whole outfield, honestly, though, because, again, Ozuna out there, that's a big drop with Rosario going out with the eye injury and hitting the DL because right now I think it's Dermott is his last name. He's playing right field right now, so I don't know what happens with him once Acuña starts playing every day in the field. But at this point, I mean, does he move to left? And does he provide a little bit better of an arm than Ozuna? And Ozuna moved to the DH. I don't know. I'll be interested to see how they kind of shift some of that defense around. So,
yeah, I don't know what your guys' thoughts are, but yeah, I would love to see that. I think Ozuna's kind of a liability at this point, but his bat is nice to have in the lineup. So I'd rather
for sure
not have the liability and put somebody out there that can provide some stability to the outfield core.
I think there's a lot of people that just kind of forgot he was gone. Like, he's a big part of the team, and the fact that he hasn't been there is kind of a big deal. And I don't think it was played up very much. I remember just kind of scrolling through ESPN, and there's just like a little tiny blurb about Acuña being back. I was like, this is a bigger deal than that.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of underplayed.
Yeah. Twitter played it up a little bit, but yeah, I agree. It was not very nationally like, holy cow, this guy's back. So
yeah.
You have any thoughts, Robby, on what you're seeing in Acuña?
I think he hadn't seen big league pitching since last July. It's just going to take some time.
Yeah.
I agree with the outfield defense. I think Berrick has kind of earned a longer stay up at the big league field. He's been playing with a lot of energy. I mean, he's quick. He's got a good arm. I think he's also got big league experience. But I think for me, the outfield defense is one thing. We, as a group, I think we're tied for first with strikeouts.
Yep.
In the major leagues, and now we're way up there in home runs as well. But we're also walking people on the mound. I mean, we've had a couple of starts like today. Kyle Muller went two and a third, walked 6 guys.
Yeah.
Elder every time he goes out there now has been playing with fire. So I mean, I really think we gotta cut down the strikeouts as a group and start competing in the zone on the mound. I mean, especially with the back half of that rotation, because the top is too good to go 3-2 and 2-3 every week.
Yeah. I was going to make that point, Robby. I looked up the statistics a little bit today to just kind of look. So if you go back and include the Marlins loss from last Sunday, the Braves lost 4 games technically over this last week. And in those 4 games, they walked 7, 6, 4, and 6. The pitching staff did in those games. And you're just not going to win baseball games putting guys free on base like that. And especially with some of the defense that we've talked about as well. Again, Demerit, he did not make a very good play in right field today. That dive that he made was, I appreciate the aggressiveness, but holy cow, that turned into a 3-run dive, and that changes the whole complexion of the game. So, just I think taking a little bit more of a passive route and get in front of that ball, keep yourself in the ball game for a little bit there, and we'll see what happens. But
it kind of gives you an idea of where they think other starting pitchers are, which is kind of terrifying a little bit. Like, cause Tucker Davidson, Tukey Toussaint, now Kyle Muller. I mean, Bryce Elder got the nod before him. Before all 3 of those guys who have big league experience, and so I hope that it can kind of solidify the 4 and the 5, because Ian pitched well. Max Fried's pitched well. Kyle Wright's pitching well. Charlie Morton, I believe he'll figure it out. But, man, that last part of the rotation needs some help.
Yeah. Well, I was going to expand off your point, Robbie. I think it's interesting. I wonder if we're taking advantage of being this early in the season and try to see if we can get guys experience so that down the back half of the season, you've got guys who already have experience, and now you're just kind of expanding that personnel and saying, hey, these guys have got big league experience now. They're not just coming in hot for the postseason. So I wonder if that plays a little bit into it as well, just to kind of get a feel for the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah, so I guess the Braves do go 3-3 this week, if I'm correct.
Yep.
Where do you see? I mean, I know we talked about this early on, and I know it's early.
Yeah.
We thought, guys, we gotta win series that we need to win, and we can afford to lose some that we can afford to lose.
Yeah.
I feel like we should have taken both of these series this week. Did not. Would you guys? I mean, is there any cause for concern that you guys see right now? I know we talked about walks in the pitching staff in the back half. Are there any other things that stand out for this team right now that need to kind of get addressed quicker rather than later for you guys?
I think that lineup just needs to gel a little bit. Like Robby said, the strikeouts have not been great so far, and it's kind of putting some guys in some tough spots. But the offense is just kind of spotty. When the top of the order's hitting, the bottom isn't. When the bottom is producing, the top seems to leave them on base. So, again, I guess we're sitting here describing a team that's not winning a lot of baseball games. So a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is not surprising, I don't think. But, to your point, Kenny, when we talked last week and we were looking at the schedule, playing – the Cubs, which we did take 2 of 3, but then the Rangers, we easily could have been 5-1, 4-2 at the minimum, I think, this week, and here we are sitting at a 3-3 week. So not the ideal week that I think we have, and honestly, not the momentum that I think we really need. Now heading to the road to play 4 against the Mets this week, and then returning home to play 3 against Milwaukee. It would have been nice, especially today, to carry some winning momentum into that series. So
yeah.
Maybe the Mets playing really well and the Brewers being the Brewers, and we played them in the playoffs last year. Maybe playing some of those type of games will get a jolt.
Yeah. I hope so.
Jolt going.
I hope so. Quick question, real quick, before we jump to the next one. Because I know the MLB kind of flipped and back and forth on a couple rules. Are the double headers that are pre-scheduled back to 7 innings, or are they full 9-inning double headers? Do we know the answer to that question?
That's a good question.
Anybody in the chat, feel free to chime into that. But
we need some quick fact checkers on that one.
Because this is our first game this week where we have the doubleheader with the Mets on Tuesday, and it's part of the makeup from the beginning of the season for the series that we missed. So I'm just curious if that Tuesday doubleheader is a full 9-inning, 2 games, or if it's 2 7s. Because that obviously, when we talk about a struggling pitching staff, 2 9-inning games is that's a whole different story than 2 7-inning games. So I was kind of just curious the outlook of the week.
Well, I do know that the rosters go back to 26. Is that right? On Monday. But then on Tuesday, the Braves roster goes back up to 27 because of the doubleheader.
Okay.
So those roster things are going to play a factor in this as well, in a doubleheader as well. Sure. It just so happens that the Braves have it the day after the rosters shrink.
Yeah.
So
if they're expanding the roster to 27, that lends me to believe that it's 2 9s.
I think they do that regardless, but I don't know.
I think it is.
We'll try to figure that out, but nonetheless, just something to keep an eye on this week when it comes to the Braves. And I wasn't sure where the MLB fell on that, since they have kind of gone back on a couple things like the Ghost Runner and all that stuff, which this podcast doesn't acknowledge Ghost Runner as a rule, but because that man is a real person.
The way the Braves play the extra inning, guy on second base to start the inning, it's like, holy cow, we got to get rid of that too.
Yeah.
It's
in some games this season, that's the furthest a Braves runner's been all game. So that's
we'll take it. We'll take it.
That's reminiscent of that Red Sox Rays game last week that we chatted about, where the Red Sox being no hit, and all of a sudden they start the extra innings with a runner on second. So
that's right.
What a gift that turns out to be. So
that's right.
Anyway, we can hop on to the next one if you want to, Kenny.
Yeah, for sure. We talked a little bit about the Braves. I was going to say this was going to be a great topic, except for the Orioles just took 2 from Boston. So the Orioles go 2-4 this week. Berrick is probably somewhat happy. That probably.
Hey man, we took a series from the Red Sox. Come on now, yeah.
Can't complain about that.
They had a tough week playing the Yankees and the Red Sox back to back. Lose 3 straight to the Yanks, and then take 2 of 3 from Boston. So, Berrick.
That's the thing. I think that's a good example though of what the whole year is going to be like. It's going to be a roller coaster where they're going to, you're going to have the title for the, for the podcast for the week, going to be like, yeah, the Orioles are looking good, and then they're going to lose like 4 straight. So it's or vice versa. So yeah, it's going to be like that all year. But my boy Anthony Santander, he's still playing well and looking good, and honestly, he's been kind of him and Austin Hayes. Austin Hayes is, if people want just some highlights to watch, he's got some pretty great defensive highlights to take a look at just for fun. But they're about the only 2 things right now that are carrying the team.
Fair.
Yeah.
Sounds like you guys have a couple of really good trade chips
to get
rid of at the trade deadline.
That's the worst thing. We kind of talked about it a little bit last time, but yeah, that's gonna be so frustrating because we're gonna, as any fan does, you get to the halfway point, you kind of get attached to the players that are playing well, and that's we're gonna be the first ones to ship somebody off and get a few guys that I've never heard of and have to text you guys and be like, who are these guys? Are they any good? So that's what's going to happen.
That's fair. But I will say it depends on where your roller coaster is going to be, whether you're going to be in the peak or the valley come over under time here at the end of the season. So I'm hoping that it's the valley there for us, but we'll see. So.
Maybe it'd be interesting as we get closer to the trade deadline to see if, like, I don't know if the Braves will even need to be buyers. They may be, very content with where they are when it gets there. But we could maybe combine the 2 teams and see if there's anybody the Braves would be interested in poaching from the Orioles come deadline time.
There you go. I don't hate it.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Hey, those outfielders you kept naming off keep playing the way they do.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you guys were talking about outfield help. We got Austin Hayes. You got Cedric Mullins might be probably the big one that people would try to get. There's a couple options.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll get rid of Hayes. 26. He's hitting 275 with 2 homers so far this year. That feels like a young kid.
That's the thing. Most of our guys, you go look at him again. Mullins, Ryan Mountcastle, even Trey Mancini is still pretty young. Like, we got a lot of the guys that are producing are really young, which makes it harder to get rid of because you want them to be part of your rebuilding future. But
sure,
but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I get it.
As long as they get the good prospects, you know what I'm saying. So.
And honestly, they've done a good job with that. I mean, most of the prospects they haven't whiffed on very many. Now, a lot of them are still in single or double A, but they've actually done a pretty good job, which is why, if they do get rid of some of the bigger names, I kind of have faith that they're going to get good return for them. So that's kind of one of the only things that a lot of Oriole fans have to hold on to is like, well, in a couple of years they'll be worth watching. So yay.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. Well, sweet. So the Orioles have an okay week after we had pegged them to have a terrible week. Speaking of, they played the Yankees. What is going on with the Yanks, guys?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this was
about a roller coaster.
Yeah. And this topic was slightly carryover from last week. Berrick kind of teed us up and teased us into to episode 5 here for us. But yeah, just quickly talking about the Yankees just as a team. Again, coming into, I think as of yesterday, having the best record in the league, and then they won today, so 15-6. Again, they've been playing good and bad, kind of all along, and we'll kind of see what happens from there. But yeah, it's been interesting. But the big topic that we didn't get to last week was the Guardians in Yankee Stadium, and all the things going on with the fans. I'm a little torn on this. We've gone back and forth on some topics where, the fans seemed to go in and kind of go through a different thing of like the players can't respond to fans. It gets deemed as they've overstepped the line and they've gone too far if they engage with a fan and all this stuff. And again, jumping on the fence and getting in a fan's face, I don't know if that goes too far or not. But it definitely egged that situation on just a little bit. But at the same time, I mean, from a fan standpoint, I mean, we can't have stuff getting thrown on fields. And like the announcers were even saying kind of in the video and stuff, like, those were like full bottles of water and cans of beer. I mean, they weren't throwing like light stuff. I mean, they're throwing stuff that could definitely do some damage to somebody if they hit them. So, just a wild scene in the Bronx there with that. So that's kind of my 2 cents. It's crazy, but
I don't know if I feel like this. I don't know if this is the unpopular or popular decision or thought on this, but like I was totally on the player side though. I feel like if it seemed like the fans, like you mentioned, Scotty, when you start throwing stuff that can actually injure somebody onto the field, like I think the players have every right to kind of chirp back and tell them what they think, because I think I guess you never know exactly what they said, but I think most of them were probably just saying, hey man, this is a dumb idea, don't do this. It's not like they're trying to egg them on to make it worse. So I thought the players had all the right in the world to do that, and even to walk off if they wanted to, and just be like, hey, listen, we're not playing until this this gets corrected. So
and again, I totally get the Guardians player sticking up for the fans cheering for an injured player on the field. I mean, that's just also not a very, that's a pretty classless move when that's going on. And John Boy put together a pretty hilarious kind of review of that, where there was a fan that was giving a rather crude, I'm trying to think how to put it delicately, he was calling someone a bad female body part for being injured. But what I don't think that fan kind of realizes is how hard he ran full speed into that wall. I mean, and that's a zero padded area on that wall. I mean, that would not be fun. I have ran into my fair share of chain link fences and things like that. So I definitely had reckless abandon for we'll call them field boundaries when I was playing, going after those foul balls at first base and stuff like that. But again, I think sticking up for your teammate, did he need to climb on the fence and kind of instigate it a little bit? I don't know about that, but I didn't have a problem with him sticking up for a player that's injured and kind of going from there. So,
yeah. I mean, I'm all for kind of the rivalries here and being upset or not, but until you step foot on a baseball field and compete at the level that they compete, just shut your mouth and don't say anything, in my opinion. Keep it to yourself. You don't understand what these guys go through day in and day out. I'm sure that somebody would be happy to put you through that for a day and see how you come out the next day, and then we'll see how it goes. But I'm with you. The players have, in my opinion, have every right to stick up for themselves, and I hope that this kind of settles it all, for me at least.
Well, and to your point there too, Kenny, it's one of those situations where that's Stephen Kwan. He's a rookie. He gets hurt and all of a sudden gets sent back down to AAA, and then somebody else comes in, takes a spot, and gets hot, and he doesn't touch the major league field for the rest of the season. So you're literally talking about somebody's
livelihood.
Yeah, their livelihood, their legacy. Like, that's game changing money. He all of a sudden not being on that big league field for that amount of time, not to mention the service time he misses out on, all that kind of stuff. So, I think that's where, again, and the casual fan's not going to have that mindset. I'm not saying they necessarily should, but I think, again, just, we try to be a podcast of the people as well. And I think just having it out there that, these guys aren't just out there for our amusement. This is their livelihood. You can have your opinion on how much they're paid and all that kind of stuff. That's fair. I'm not going to have that argument with anyone, but at the same time, like, they still are human beings. This is what they have chosen to do for a job. They have made a tremendous sacrifice of time and family and stuff like that. And so there does need to carry a level of respect with that. So
sure. I'm going to take a brief pause. Welcome in Drew. Thanks for joining, Drew.
Sorry, guys.
We're glad you're here. So I'll take the moment to introduce him, and then if anybody else has anything to say on the Yankees front, please do.
I got you. I have had the privilege to talk with Trot Nixon, and obviously Trot plays in the Yankees-Red Sox rivalry his entire career, and he says, this right here is mild compared to what happened to him in right field. He said there's many of times he had batteries thrown at him among things.
Louise.
So I think it's not so much as this has never happened before. This is more so social media has brought the attention of it finally now of what really goes on in Yankee Stadium at times. And, I know the Yankee fans are very passionate. Bless you.
Thank you.
Yankee fans are very passionate about their team.
Yeah.
I understand that, but there's a line.
Yeah.
You don't need to be throwing stuff at these people.
Yeah.
Whether you like them or not, you don't need to be throwing stuff at these people. That's their job. Their job's to play baseball to the best of their ability. Yeah, there you go.
It almost goes without saying, but like it's embarrassing for the fans. Like if you're a halfway decent person and you were involved in that, the next day you look back at it, you should just be like, what was I doing?
Yeah, for real. Yeah. And again, we're, not so that people don't think we're throwing shade at Yankees fans. Yes, the Braves fans had a moment of weakness in 2012 with the infamous infield fly rule. But let's also keep in mind there were a lot of things going on in that game. That was Chipper's last season. The call was horrendous. So again, I'm still not condoning it. So the Braves fans have done this. So again, we're not throwing total shade at the Yankees fans, but to Drew's point, there's a history there.
Toronto has a terrible history of it too.
Yeah.
Well, they're in Canada, so I mean,
whole different ball game.
That's right. Cool. Well, I guess we'll move on to another kind of hot topic for the last couple of days. Trevor Bauer suspended for 2 years. I'm just gonna go on a limb. This guy's career is over. He's done, and regardless of whether all this is true or not. Well, I shouldn't say that. It stings. It stinks a little bit if this stuff is not true, and there's a bunch of people who ruined his life. If it is true, I'm glad that it's coming out, and I'm glad that this is being brought to the forefront. But it's just kind of sad where we are that this is the way that it's kind of happened. I don't know where it depends on what this type of what he is, who he is, how he's acted, and if this stuff is actually true. So I'm torn, to be honest with you. I feel like it's a loss for the game as a player, as Trevor Bauer as a player, not as a person. And it just kind of stings for a lot of that, and for the game, to be honest, for me.
I'm kind of wondering if this suspension is more so to do with Trevor and his social media and how he, I'll be honest here, attacks Rob Manfred, Major League Baseball, with what they do and calls them out on their BS, or does it have to do with what actually happened? I'm going to say probably 50-50 on both, because he does call out some stuff and he tells it how it is, and he loves social media, and it is what it is. But, whether he did or didn't do whatever they claim that he does, I don't know. I think he brings a lot of good things to the sport. He's helping out with the promoting players, that aspect. The other aspect of what his allegations are, I obviously don't condone any of that.
Sure.
But, we don't know. We weren't there.
Yeah.
We have no clue.
That's the thing. That's a big part of it, is that there's just so many aspects to this. The first and foremost is obviously the allegations. And if you just go by, there's only probably the people that were involved actually know what happened. But if you go by the legal side, everything was dismissed. They were saying there's no case. So, if you go by just a strict, letter of the law, if you will, then the suspension doesn't seem warranted. But then, the other part of it is, he has a reputation, but in my opinion, I don't think that should be taken into account for MLB. Like, I don't think MLB should be, that doesn't have anything to do with, the reason he's suspended. So, and then the third part of it is just the length of it. I mean, 2 years is just incredibly long. So I don't know. I'm kind of on Team Bauer. That's probably not the
PC
popular thing to say, I guess. But I think if you actually look at it, which I spent a little bit of time reading some articles on it, if I'm him, I'm just like, what is going on? Like, this is crazy.
Well, see, the other thing is, I mean, as Braves fans, we know about this. I mean, Ozuna.
Yeah.
What was he suspended?
Yep.
If I remember correctly, he was actually committed the crime, right?
Yeah.
Well, they didn't press charges, but
Right.
the cops were called, and apparently the story was the cops witnessed part of it. But again, that's where I find it interesting. Like, if
Correct.
the cops witness it, how did they not charge him? Because, like, at that point,
Yeah.
I felt like it's not up to the individual. But again, I'm not a lawyer by any means. But yeah, no, you're right.
And I think that's where you're kind of like, okay, why does this guy get this suspension, and then why does this guy get that suspension?
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to the whole him giving the big middle finger to Major League Baseball. So
Yeah.
Bauer, that is. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys think that should play a role in his suspension? Because I don't. I mean, like, I can understand MLB being like, frustrated about it, but you got to separate. Really? I don't know.
I do. Hey, look, here's the thing. There are a lot of baseball players who have been outspoken, forefront, challenge the MLB office. But, dude, do not go criticizing another organization if your house is not in order. Period.
That's fair.
If you want to go there and you want to be this kind of rogue whatever, then you got to make sure your house is cleaned up. And whether it's regardless, the behavior with those women was unwarranted, and it's not good, especially for someone who's as public. And you can say, well, he's just a human being, and it's other people wouldn't have done this and this and that. There's a different level of expectation when you are making millions of dollars, when you are on TV, when you are in front of cameras, when you are famous. There is, I mean, shoot, I just think there is. And if you can't handle that, and you can't handle the repercussions that come with that, then that's on you. But that's just what I think.
I agree with you, Robby. I agree with the fact that, like, look, man, if you're going to go attacking somebody, make sure your house is in order before you start doing this. The only problem that I have with this, and by all means, I do not condone what he did with those women, whatever it might be. Why is it taking 3+ years for this stuff to come out? I mean, it wasn't like he just got famous yesterday. This guy was like the topic of conversation since he was in college for all. I mean, he was at UCLA being like the crazy kid who did all these stupid things. So, like, I just was reading an article earlier today about the third accuser that's now come out, and she said she met him in Columbus when he was within the Guardians organization. It's like, okay, that was what, 5 years ago? Like, why is this taking this long to come out? Sorry if I'm getting my time frames mixed up.
Well,
but like,
because honestly, it's one of the most embarrassing and shameful things that can happen to a lady, and they are scared and they are not believed sometimes, and so that plays a factor in why they don't come and say things.
You see it. I remember, like, it's not quite the same thing, but like with what happened with Cosby, you had a lot of people that came out down the road as time went on. Because I think a lot of people are afraid to take the first step, but then when they see somebody do it, then you get people kind of like in a chain reaction kind of thing that start to come out. And like Robby said, it's a really hard decision. So
I understand that.
Not to mention, he is famous and very well connected and has a lot of money.
Sure, and I imagine they know that, and that they could have been kind of handled behind closed doors, to be quite honest with you, and that it would have been sealed away before this even got to be a huge deal. He could have been suspended or taken out of the game for these things, and they could have probably been handled before it got to be this huge blasphemy social media thing, rather than the way that it's kind of gone. It's just my kind of take on it.
Yeah. So
I agree.
I've been a, I won't say fan, but I've been a follower of Bauer for a while, just because his YouTube content's pretty intriguing. And the vlog that he started in the COVID season was like a true eye-opening experience, I think, for fans behind things. And so I've been following him for quite a bit of time. And so when all this kind of came out, it kind of piqued my interest. And so, I have probably researched this more than I probably should have spent time doing so, but I was just very intrigued by it. And so, I agree with pretty much everything that's been said so far. And it's a slippery slope. We have 5 dudes on here talking about a sexual assault against a female, so we obviously can't put ourselves in those shoes. So by no means, I think, do any of us want our comments somewhat in support of him to think that we condone that behavior. That is by no means what we are saying at all. I think what's hard for us and anybody that's following this is we just don't know what the facts are. And Bauer did file a lawsuit against the San Diego female that came out, and they actually posted the lawsuit papers that they filed, and I read all of them just because I was intrigued about it. And I will preface this by, I understand this is one individual side of the story. There were 2 people present, so I'm not saying that his information is wholeheartedly true. But he did include in his evidence, kind of in the papers, actual text message conversations that they were able to obtain. And there are some text messages that definitely paint this as like a planned, orchestrated, if we can get him to do this, I'm going to get paid, basically. So, again, like Kenny kind of led off with, this definitely is going to make it obscenely difficult for him to come back to any organized baseball in the United States. But if it truly was a situation where he did not do these things and it was quote unquote consensual, based on what he was under the impression was consensual, I think that's where MLB is going to have a slippery slope of punishing people for their personal behind closed doors decisions that aren't actual crimes. Because I would be willing to probably put a bet out there that Bauer is not the only Major League Baseball player that likes quote unquote rough sex or is having rough sex in his life. So all of a sudden, does this open the door for, again, little things that a player is doing in their life that isn't necessarily considered a crime? Again, and I'm not even talking about sexual acts at this point, just anything at that point, for the MLB to step in and say, we disagree with this as a philosophy or as a how we think you should act, and we're going to suspend you for it. I think that creates a very weird dichotomy all of a sudden, and power for the league. All of a sudden, let's just say, for instance, they come out and say tobacco use, which they did kind of do this, but if they said tobacco use of any kind is a bad portrayal to the youth of our country, and if you are caught at any point in your life, whether it's in your house, in your bedroom, driving in your car, smoking or chewing tobacco, you would get suspended for a year. That's crazy. That is a personal decision that person has made. Now, again, if you don't want them to do it on the field, that is within their control. But again,
I think Scotty I think like marijuana is almost a better example of that than tobacco. But the other thing too is like in all the major sports, how many times have we seen, somebody get accused of something and then they're allowed to keep playing until the legal system actually, finishes their process. I guess that brings up another situation of whether it should, but personally, I think that's the right thing to do. Again, until there's some kind of, legal reason, I think you let the guy play until there's a reason not to. Because right now, they're basically suspending him 2 years for an accusation. And again, if you go, like we've already said, if you go and look at what the judges said, they actually said, we're not really prosecuting this. So again, if I'm Bauer, I'm calling MLB like, so what are you really suspending me for? Like, you're basically suspending me because you don't like me.
Yeah. And to that point, I don't know what the domestic violence section reads in the MLB code. So they couldn't have made this like levy of a penalty if they don't have something in the domestic violence kind of section of their player conduct that they can latch onto. So I think that's what's going to be fascinating, is to kind of hear what the MLB's defense is to latch onto that. What's crazy to me is they're not giving him the administrative leave time that he's been on since last year. That's kind of what's a little baffling to me, is he technically, while he's been getting paid, he has been technically suspended for almost a full baseball season. So that parts to me is kind of like, why are they not giving him that time back? I guess their argument is, well, he was being paid and now we're not paying him, so he needs to really feel it in his purse. And I kind of mentioned this in the group thread. To be honest, I think the Dodgers are very happy with this because they now don't have to make the decision. Because to my understanding, this suspension will go through when his next contract is technically up. So I think now he's not even a part of the Dodgers organization and they can just wash their hands. And I think that's part of a lot of this, is the Dodgers just kept pushing the buck to the league to say, what do you want to do with him? And then if the MLB said he can play, then the Dodgers were going to say, well, per the MLB, like, he was allowed to play, and so we let him play. So that's what's been a fascinating kind of thing for me.
The Dodgers are happy about that decision maybe, but they're not happy that they don't have him as a player, I guarantee you.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, we can move on, but it's obviously big baseball news.
For sure.
And I'm very interested to see how it's going to play out over the next probably months. So
yeah, totally agree. I do want to hit these last couple 3 topics, so I'll jump right into this next one. We saw kind of our first big brawl this week, Cardinals Mets. We saw some jumping over bullpen walls. We saw some great aspects of the thing, of a huge brawl, which was great. I'm interested to hear y'all's takes on it. Mine, just for the record, is I think the guys and the players should police the game, but don't ever throw at somebody's head. And if you do, you deserve what's about to come. So, I know that it escalated rather quickly, rightfully so, but I'm interested to hear y'all's thoughts.
I think you summed it up really well. Don't throw at somebody's head.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Kids can't do that anymore. Kids, legitimately, these bullpen pitchers do not have the command to keep it away from their head. I mean, you're talking about millimeters of release point between hitting somebody in the ribs or in the butt and in the head and putting it up near their shoulder or near their face. I mean, and
that brings up
these young pitchers don't have the command to be able to do that, and they're throwing 100 miles an hour. So
that brings up another question: why don't they? Because apparently in the past they were able to. So what has lapsed in the education of these pitchers and the training of these pitchers? Because in the past they were controlling it pretty well.
Throw hard. The other thing is, and in all honesty, I know a lot of pitchers, they use tack. These balls, and I know that's on the list of agendas with Chris Bassett and the baseballs, but the balls are like throwing an egg. It's slippery. It take off on you. I mean, I've seen it. It just goes. I think the real thing is control is not taught as much anymore. It's, can I throw 95 miles an hour to get a college scholarship or get drafted?
Yep.
Because 95 is now the old 90.
Yeah.
If you throw 90 now in high school, cool. You're probably going to go play college baseball because you're not getting drafted.
Yep.
You throw 95 in high school, now we're getting somewhere, whether you control it or not. And I mean, you know, I've had some conversations with some people in the last week, and it's the last time I checked. And I mean, you know, the game's changing and stuff, but still, last time I checked, the name of the game is get outs.
Yep.
Whether you throw 90, whether you throw 90, 95, 100, 105. And now we've got guys in college throwing 105. In a day, can you get guys out? Because if you can get guys out, you're going to play this game for a long time, especially on the pitching end.
Sure.
If you can throw 95, and I mean, Kenny knows he caught Dominican guys when he was playing with Kansas City. He can throw it, but he doesn't know where it's going. That probably don't last long.
That's scary as a batter, isn't it?
Ball 12.
Oh, it's 100% scary. So, yeah, I guess overall issue, and again, I guess I struggle to have an issue with it, is I don't think any of the Cardinals pitchers were intentionally throwing at the Mets. So part of it is like I have an issue with the Mets, quote unquote, retaliating, but at the same time, they don't have any other way to be like, look, we've had enough, figure it out. So like that's kind of where I'm just like pissed is like, why did the benches have to clear? Like Arenado, I felt like was doing a good enough job up there himself of being like, do it again. Like, you know, like if you're going to do it, do it. Like that same kind of story that we heard. Now he's obviously not wanting to get hit in the head, which I think that's what his issue was, you know, they were kind of going head for head, basically, you know, on that. But I don't know. It's a tough spot. You know, I hate that they did retaliate, but at the same time, I kind of do get it to some degree. I think it has created a bit of a new rivalry between the two teams. The fascinating thing that I found from it as well was the Cardinals coach basically like belly rolling Pete Alonso from behind. I mean, what happens if we're sitting here talking about that and that dude like tears an ACL or rolls an ankle on him by pulling him out of that thing? Like now you're going to have a whole other issue on your hands because it's a non-baseball play. It's an opposing coach policing another player. That was what was so wild to me about like that whole thing as well, was that just the imagery of that.
For sure. Well, I mean, I think it goes back to, you know, like I said, there's a lot of testosterone on the field. Everyone's jacked up. And something like that happens, you're never going to get people to stay away from that incident, right?
Yeah.
It's just
and it's not only the testosterone, but isn't it kind of part of the you know, I guess you put in quotes, the brotherhood, you know, like I got your back kind of thing. Like, you know, you got people coming out in support of your teammate. I get that part. I don't think I really have a problem with that. I know it, you know, makes it look bigger of a deal than it is, and it slows the game down. But I don't have a problem with the benches actually clearing. I think the bigger question is, you know, getting back to what Drew said, if there's like an actual problem with controlling the ball, I think that becomes a bigger kind of MLB topic. Like, what does MLB need to do to, you know, fix this? Because again, that's way too dangerous. You know, if pitchers are really feeling like they can't control, you know, the ball, then I think that they need to figure that out.
So I'm glad that you brought that up, Eric. Thank you. The great thing I was going to say is, can somebody, and I wish Ryan were on here to talk a little bit about this, but let's be honest.
Probably, but go ahead.
Okay, but so look, man, I've pitched, I've caught for guys who wanted talc on the ball at some capacity. What's the besides doctoring the ball in terms of like, what are we talking about here? I mean, it's not
what's
like
the
ball moves that much. I mean, I've had guys who have used talc. I felt their fingers after they pitch, and it's like they're dipping it. I mean, I always make the joke of like the little giant through when the guy's like putting his hands down, right? And like it feels exactly like that, and yet they still can't get people out. So like, you know, I get we can't have like the balls being scuffed on purpose. We can't have this. We can't have that. But what difference does it really make?
Yeah,
in all actuality.
I had the same thought. I was like, who cares? Like, there's people on national shows and everything that were trying to compare it to the steroid age. It's like it's not even remotely close. This is and again, if it's a safety thing, if it actually makes it safer, then why wouldn't you be for this?
Well, but what safety would you be talking about? Like the safety of
well,
the
again,
player?
if you do get better, let's say, and I know what you're saying, Kenny, is that it didn't really give you much better control, but let's say it does. Like if there's some pitchers that are like, man, I feel more confident, I feel like I can, control the ball better. Okay. Great. Like, what's wrong with that? Like, why, if you're MLB, why would you have a problem with that? I don't.
Well,
yeah,
I know there's a lot of hitters that said they would much rather these pitchers have something on their fingers, a little bit of tact, because they're standing in the box facing 99 to 100 plus. I mean, right. I would much rather know that when I step in the box that if I got something thrown at my head, it was on purpose.
Yeah.
Versus, it slipped out of my hand and because I have nothing. I mean, I know we just talked about Bauer, but he did a thing on his vlog from last year with the tack and how he took sweat and rosin and was able to hold a baseball stuck to his hand.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, obviously there's enough tack to do that, but obviously these guys want a little bit more tack.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'm sure Donaldson and Cole, that was a great conversation that we weren't privy to, but about Cole using spider tack. And honestly, it's trickling its way down. I mean, there's kids that use it in college. There's kids that use it in high school. So you're seeing things trickle down because there you go. Yeah. But that's what they want.
Yeah, I will say like a little bit of it, in my opinion, has to do with the technology has caught up in the pitching space. I feel like technology for the longest time was very hitter focused on swing path, the angle of attack, all that kind of stuff. And I'm blanking on the name of the camera system, but there's a camera system now that a lot of clubs are using, and Bauer was a big Edgertronics. That's it. Yep. And Bauer was a big proponent of this again a couple years ago. But I listened to an interview earlier this week where a pitcher was talking about with the Edgertronics system, they can, like, take for instance the guy he mentioned, Corey Kluber. There's a new slider, and I'm going to put it in quotations, that everybody's throwing, and it's the Corey Kluber slider. And basically what pitchers are now able to do is look at his pitch on the Edgertronics system, and they can literally recreate his exact pitch with arm angle, the position on the ball, like everything. And so I think the problem that it develops is the technology now shows that the level of spin rate can heavily dictate RPM, or not RPMs, can dictate miles per hour. It can dictate break distance, how far a pitch is going to break. And I think that's where the MLB maybe jumped the gun a little bit and is saying like, whoa, this is like legitimately a performance enhancing system now, because you have a guy that maybe was throwing 92, 93, and because of Edgertronics and the combination of some kind of sticky substance, this dude's getting 96, 97 with a little bit of movement all of a sudden. And this is a guy that was a fringe 25, 26 man on the roster, and now he's making an all-star game. So if that is the case, then I do have a bit of a problem with that. I don't think that in and of itself should cause that, but to the point, it has obviously created some kind of issue of these guys not having whatever they were used to. And so I think you're seeing MLB back off of that a little bit because of how they're checking players now. And it's pretty much like the first inning. And then after that, they're not being checked, to my understanding. So I don't know. But that's kind of my understanding, is it has a little bit to do with the pitching technology has just advanced so far now that it is kind of providing a bit of a thing. So
this is so easy. Just, cameras, no. Sticky stuff, yes. But I also think we figured something else out. Why don't should Bauer just be commissioner? Like, so think about it. So he serves his suspension, so we get that part out of the way. But now we get Manfred out because we get somebody else that actually knows what they're doing. I don't know, guys. I think we just solved it.
That's going to be a tough PR swing, I think.
Yeah. Let the boys play, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so here's the other thing, real quick, just on like the actual like the balls issue, and I've been laughing this whole time because that's just such a funny pun. That's just a funny pun. But nonetheless, like I was hearing some things as well after Chris Bassett's comments that basically were talking about, this mud substance that actually got an ESPN documentary a couple years ago, and they kind of painted this in this like very good light and all this kind of stuff. I was listening to some interviews where some guys were saying like the consistency between baseball to baseball, even just from the amount of mud that's put on a ball, is like astronomical. And so it's like it just completely makes that mud process kind of a joke, because you get one ball that's got like a dollop of mud just on one spot, and so it's basically a brand new baseball, and then all of a sudden you get a ball that's like blending in with the dirt, like and so it's like, why have we not figured out a way to put out a consistent baseball to on every pitch? Like, that's what I guess I just don't understand.
Because I think controls Rawlings.
Well, that too, and I think that we've gone down such a path of, Manfred and the MLB is trying to control what they can control, and they think they can control this. It's just let baseball be baseball. Let guys do whatever they want to do to the baseball. But now we've gone down so many different paths. It's like, well, you're right. The mud on the baseball is not consistent from baseball to baseball. Well, this guy can create rosin and sweat and make it super talky, and it's great for him, but it doesn't work for me. So that's kind of unfair. And his ball is moving more than mine is because he's being able to use that and I can't. And I think we've just gone down so many different paths here, and we don't have a clear, direct path to a good baseball. Enjoy the game of baseball, let it be what it is, and move forward. So I think that's part of it.
Agreed.
Speaking of inconsistency with baseball, is Angel Hernandez like the best umpire of all time, or do we not love him? Where do we stand on that guy? I feel like I haven't really heard much about him this year.
Ray Charles available? Because he'd be better.
Look, man, I will say we've all played at some capacity. We've all had some umpires that are terrible, and we've also had some umpires that are good. Where do you guys see the game going with Robo-Umps? Do we want them? Is this just part of the game and people just need to kind of move on? What are we thinking?
They're human. End of the day, they're human. All right, you go Robo-Umps. I don't know if any of you've seen the Atlantic League previous years. It's tough. You see pitches that look very bad that are called strikes. At the end of the day, the zone's going to change different times, because if TrackMan's doing it, the zone's going to be different. You got Jose Altuve and Aaron Judge, two totally different size people, and the box is going to be the same on TrackMan or close to it, and that's the issue you kind of face. I think you keep the human element in there. You just gotta I think these umpires need to be reprimanded if you miss a pitch by 6.5 inches. I mean, seriously, if you miss a pitch by 6.5 inches, something should be done. And we all know nothing's being done.
So, I hope you're not talking about. So the only issue I have, right, is Schwarber had a right to get upset. I'm thinking about the call that was made against him, right? I understand where he's coming from. But that pitch was not that bad.
No.
And I know it was a culmination of everything.
Correct.
But when you're that bad previously, that's when this gets blown up.
Correct.
In my opinion, like in any other situation, in any other game, with probably any other umpire in the field, dude, you're 0-2, you're 1-2, whatever it is, you better foul that off and get to the next pitch. Otherwise, you're going to get rung up. And I love the human element. It's great. It provides content for people to talk about, but I'm a little bit upset with the kind of everybody jumping on the bandwagon. Let's go to robo umpires. Let's do it. Blah blah blah. I just think it would be detrimental to the game.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't seen the Robo-Ump in person, so I don't know how it affects like watching a game in person. But like Drew said, I have seen some highlights. There was even a highlight from the Charlotte Knights game, I think earlier this week or last week. Catcher set up completely outside. I think they were even trying to miss the plate outside, and the kid ends up throwing it inside. The catcher lunges to get the ball, and it caught the inside corner and rung him up. And like the whole stadium was confused. Like the pitcher, the catcher, the hitter. He was like, "What just happened?" And I think those are the situations. Even though it may happen once in an entire baseball game, it still leaves a sour taste in everybody's mouth. Just because, yes, technically it's a strike, and that's where I guess I struggle with the concept of having Robo-Umps is like by the letter of what is said. Now, again, Drew's point of like the strike zone not necessarily changing adequately per batter, that definitely is an issue, but per the letter of the, what the baseball book said, like the pitch caught the inside corner, so it shouldn't matter where the catcher set up or what, because that's what we're also arguing about right now is situations where catchers are framing pitches so well that umpires like are just calling them strikes. And so again, it's not even, all that's a whole, diatribe of that situation as well. I think to Kenny's point, we have to solve the root of the issue, and that is MLB umpires are treated like Supreme Court justices, basically, where it's like once you make it to the league, you basically retire. Like it's a job for life. And that's the part that I just don't understand, like from the umpire association, how they finagled that kind of deal, because how are they not judged on the quality that they're out there, putting out there? And Robby sent out in the group chat earlier week, and I don't want to steal too much of his thunder, but we had two fairly younger umpires that, this past week literally call a near perfect game. I think they each missed one call. And so I think a lot of the issues that you see with these umpires in these games is the umpires that struggle behind the plate are older. They're also, and I could be wrong about this, but the eye test doesn't say that there seems to be zero physical activity requirement of a MLB umpire to uphold throughout the season. And so like it makes it very difficult for these guys to get into proper positions to actually make these calls. And so I guess like that, I just don't understand how MLB umps are not being held to some type of performance standard, and why it's being treated like, again, the best example I have is a Supreme Court, seat, basically.
Well, and I mean, the hard part too is like, just like every job, you are held to a standard. You have an evaluation from your superior, pretty much every job. Why not this one? Even in Major League Baseball, if you're not playing well enough, if you're a player and you're not playing well, you get demoted. If you're a manager and you don't do your job, you're fired. If you're the pitching coach and you don't do your job, fired. I mean, those are the kind of things. And I mean, I know in the AAA umps, they're working to get to the show.
Yep.
Well, if the show umpires are that bad, send them to AAA. Make a statement.
Yeah. Well, and we've all talked about it on here before. There is currently like literally a shortage of umpires across all the board. And I think honestly a lot of that has to do with like, especially I'm going to talk in the professional ranks, it is such an art, it is a hard road as an umpire to make it, because they have to go through every level and touch every single level, rookie ball, Florida League, single A, double A, triple A, and there's only X number of seats, and like I said, it's pretty much the seat opens up when somebody retires. Well, shoot, I feel like we don't hear about one umpire spot open up a year. So these guys are quitting and not doing it. And I think, unfortunately, in terms of it's a trickle down, like we've talked about. People see the casual fans and high school players and little leaguers see these professional baseball players going and losing their stuff on a major league umpire, and all of a sudden they think it's acceptable. Well, no, we got to understand where we're at. You can't hold, Mr. Jones umping a game in high school to the same standard that, Angel Hernandez should be held at in the Major League Baseball. Like, Mr. Jones going to miss some calls,
Sure.
Now, let's not miss them when they matter, but he's going to miss some calls, So,
Sure.
And I think that's part of the problem is we're trying to hold high school umpires to a professional umpire, standard, and it's like this dude just clocked out of work, stocking shelves at a food line. Like, let's give him a break. So, but I think all of us, again, we're competitive. We want to win the game, and if we think the umpire's screwing us, then we're going to let him know about it. So,
Sure. No, I totally get it. Gentlemen, what a good week, good episode. Appreciate the time. Again, if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, we'd love to hear from you. shoot us an email, firsttothirdpod@gmail.com. You should see it on your screen below. We'll be back next week with some better content. Hopefully the Braves will go 5-1 this week. We are going to add a little new segment to the show next week. We're each going to take $50 play money dollars, and produce some bets for the week, and then we'll rehash on the next Sunday's episode. We'll start that next week. So, gentlemen, enjoyed it, and we will see you guys next week.
Yeah, man. Good times.
Deuces.
See ya.